Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here. My voice is sort of shot. I sort of lost it last night. Don't really know why, but today I want to get this video out to you all looking at a final feedback update, more based around tuning, numerical stuff, maybe a little bit here and there, some, oversights, bugs, and just all that before War Within actually launches. I want to get it out this weekend, so maybe if there are changes coming, I don't know, Monday, Tuesday before launch, we'll see them. I think Blizzard's likely tuning through the next 2 weeks, through launch, all the way to Heroic Week, and then Heroic Week and even beyond. But regardless, want to hit on these and have a, my hands are clean in this in a positive kind of way, at least off my plate. So if you guys have any week wars or add-ons, links in Twitch and Discord down below, you can get it for free. And heads up, the War Within Beta Warlock spreadsheet will be coming out publicly a couple days before launch, like it always does, all that. I'll probably put a video on it, possibly. In a few days, whatever that is, and my website as well, kalamazi.gg, which should be down below, maybe up here. I'm not even sure anymore, but it's down here in the description at least. Will indeed be up to date for launch, at least as far as specs and leveling things are concerned, initial builds, as well as guides coming out over the next few days. We'll be updating more of that heading into the first 2 weeks, the raid, so on and so forth. That'll all be there for you guys. Don't worry, a lot coming down the pipeline in the next few weeks, and yeah, let's get into the video. Alrighty, so I'm gonna jump in here. I have not made an actual text document of this yet. I'm gonna try and do it after the video, if not tomorrow at some point, whatever. But it's gonna be more a visual, or a video, feedback thing here. If you guys have any things that I missed here, you want to put in the comment section if they're worthwhile, and I agree, whatever. I love all y'all. I'll add it to the text document before I post it. So we're gonna go through every spec here, looking at hero talents briefly, and then just hitting on things I think need to change, could change, both on tuning, bugs, overall rotational stuff, and yeah, that'll be that. Sorry, my voice is shot, like I said. I'm sorry. I'm gonna down the clash tree very briefly here. We talked about it a million times. I don't think they're going to be taking away raw talent points at this point. It's likely more of an 11.1 thing, and they make larger changes again. But just to echo that, I do think that there needs to be some kind of reduction in our clash tree talent points. It's very hard to get talents like Fiendish Strike with Shadow Fury, with Dark Fury. You're getting, with Artifice, without dropping like stamina nodes or even looking at other nodes of, greater importance. So in general, the clash tree is hitting on it. It's better than it was in Dragonflight, but needs to be probably looked at when it comes to 2-point talent reductions here and there. When it comes to Affliction here, so you've got both Soul Harvester and Hellcaller. Now, there's been a lot of tuning to Soul Harvester, a lot of buffs to Demonic Soul, to Soul Anathema, all this stuff recently, which has been good. It's put Soul Harvester in a much better spot, damage-wise for Affliction, very close to Hellcaller. I think, well, ahead a little bit in single target, but both very close. One of the things when it comes to Soul Harvester, they changed Soul Anathema to actually have a stacking effect similar to Devouring Plague, which was added I think a few builds ago, a few weeks ago, give or take. That likely needs to be the case for Shared Fate. Shared Fate does proc when mobs die. It's sort of how Soul Flame used to be, but it has a dot damage effect that pulses damage essentially on the mob. But it's also applied by Nightfall procs. And the thing is that you have Nightfall procs being given to you whenever you cast Haunt, due to this talent here. A lot of Nightfall procs in general, when you're playing Soul Harvester or whatever, so on and so forth. Right now, you're typically playing Ravenous Afflictions as Soul Harvester in single target. This is an AoE build, so but a lot of Nightfall procs. But at times when you're casting, if you're casting Nightfalls back to back, let's say you have 2 stacks, you want to dump 1 or 2, you have Haunt off cooldown, you don't want to overcap. If you do clip a mob with Shared Fate on it, or I guess drain a mob with Shared Fate on it, and then drain it again, it will reapply the Shared Fate, but it won't add the damage onto the mob. Now, you could just say, well, let's tab to a different mob and drain that one. No problem, no harm, no foul. But unfortunately, it is a problem because Crescendo was changed a few builds ago. They referenced it as a bug, but I don't think it was a bug. If it was a bug for since Shadowlands, where this is a tier set. I think it was just a change made. I'm not really sure why they made the change, but basically, you have to cast Drain Soul or Shadow Bolt on your target that has Agony, Corruption, and UA on it. It used to be if you had Agony, Corruption, UA active on a target anywhere, and you drain the target, that had other dots on it, or Shadow Bolted it, there's a chance to get that TC proc regardless, as long as you had Agony, Corruption, and UA active somewhere. Now you have to drain that target, or Shadow Bolt that target. So number one, it makes Shared Fate in single target much worse. It is still better because it's undertuned, but it is still better in single target. But in Mythic Plus, right, a handful of reasons. And even in like cleave-based fights like Silken Court, right, you want to spread Shadow's Embrace stacks, which you can do by casting Shadow Bolts or Drain Souls on different targets. But you're not doing that anymore because you can't get TC procs. At the same time, you want to spread Shadow's Embrace and Plus on multiple mobs. Can't do that. You want to spread Shared Fates on different mobs so they both pulse, on targets around them. Can't do that anymore. This change, I mean, it's probably the biggest point of feedback that I have for Affliction, because it feels like a non-bow. Like it's a non-combo. It's anti-synergistic. It sort of hurts it hurts to play the flow of AF a lot. Actually, it's still fun to play with, but like it hurts the flow of AF a lot. And it's very awkward having to track your one UA target as well at certain times. And plus, when you're pulling 30 mobs, like in a Bracken Hollow, when you're just staring at the tree of 85 nameplates, which are half the dungeons at this point, it seems like they're all doing 10 abilities at once. It's hard to keep track of. I have a script for it, but either way, it's a bit annoying. So I'd love to see this change reverted. Just make it, as long as you have 3 dots active and you're draining or shadow bolting a mob, you can get a TC proc. And so that's point 2 of feedback. Point 1 is just adding a stacking damage like amp to this, sort of how Soul Anathema has, or how Devouring Plague has, essentially. Besides all of that, for the most part in this tree, I mean, tuning numbers, they all seem fine-ish for the most part. Not the end of the world. I will say that, you know, Soul Harvester does indeed give a lot less succulent souls like through shard generation for AF than it does Demonology, but we'll get to that in a little while. And Demo also just generates a lot more shards, so sort of makes sense. When it comes to Hellcaller, not a whole lot really, I don't think needs to change in this tree a crazy amount. I mean, you've got Malevolence here, which is obviously like a baby Dark Soul and all that. Seeds of their Demise, Mark, give or take. These have both been buffed to compensate for the improper flaggings of damage abilities here and there. There is a bit of a disparity between Bleak Heart and Hate Fury Rituals. You are indeed favoring Hate Fury again, which is nice. There is that. But besides, I think Hellcaller, honestly, is in a pretty solid spot when it comes to Affliction. So the gist of it is just Soul Harvester stuff with Shared Fate and TC and just general, you know, add a Devouring Plague-esque place out of this. When it comes to the Affliction tree here in general, I will say that Dark Virtuosity, I don't like pathing through these nodes in the first place here. If this does feel a little undertuned when it comes to us not playing us at all and playing a point in Volatile Agony in single target. I don't think the Volatile Agony is overtuned. I just think, you know, Dark Virtuosity, even with Shadow Bolt damage amps and things with, you know, Soul Harvester and all that, or Drain Soul amps, does feel a little bit subpar. I don't love the ability either way because it's just, you know, Shadow Bolt, Drain Soul damage, but in general, might be worth, you know, pointing out. Looking at in the future. Heading down the tree here, not a whole lot to say here. There is a Shadow Bolt versus Nightfall debate. Shadow Bolt versus Drain Soul debate here. It is favoring Drain Soul with Soul Harvester. When it comes to Singularity, this is both a thing for Soul Harvester and Hellcaller. Talked about it before, but Singularity, so it says 13 seconds here. It deals damage over 13 seconds, right? If I take off a piece of gear that has haste on it, let me try and find one here. Take this off, sure. It will change to 13.5 seconds. If you look at the tooltip here twice, right? And that is the problem with Singularity. It's still a talent, a good talent, you'll still play it. But unfortunately, haste has always reduced the duration of Singularity. You get the same amount of ticks, you get the same amount of damage, but it ticks essentially faster, or I guess deals damage faster, which is a bit anti-synergistic with like your Rapture windows and so on and so forth, but also it's very anti-synergistic with Infirmity, which is our new talent in Dragonflight, or in Warwithin, which gives you a damage increase whenever Singularity is active. Now, Singularity does extend with Malign Omen, with Dark Glare, but in general, it feels like a bit of a non-bow. Again, similar to Shared Fate and TC. Like, it should work, it should stack damage, it should be able to tab different targets, but it doesn't work that way. To a similar extent, you know, playing more haste gear, haste and or mastery gear, whatever you're playing, you know, for AF, when Sims are done, you likely will still want it, but it's hurting your Singularity damage a bit, which it really, or your overall damage a bit in ways that it shouldn't. So giving Singularity a flat duration, just say 15 seconds, regardless of haste, whether it's, you know, 2% or 200%, that'd be a really good change. Number 2, and more of like a minor change I can do, a little bit tweaking here and there, not a big adjustment. I will hit on Vile Taint briefly. I mean, I've hit on it a million times. Probably not going to change just because it's very close to launch, but I do think a great solution to Vile Taint, a solution to, you know, the Agony reapplication when it comes to AoE and M+, just make Infirmity double the duration of Agony whenever it's cast through Vile Taint. You wouldn't play it in single target or anything over Singularity, obviously. You wouldn't get Infirmity because you're playing Vile Taint, but Agonies would apply for 36 seconds, which sounds like a lot, but honestly, does it really matter? I don't think it really does. But that will give you enough time for those Agonies to do their whole tick, whatever, this and that. Then, you know, you can cast your Vile Taint again to refresh them. It might hurt Volatile Agony a little bit, but I mean, it probably would, but at the same time, like, you can tweak and tune things. Maybe it's an 11.1 thing, but this 4-stack count thing on Infirmity, for Vile Taint, no one's playing that. It's thoughtful, but I guess in the end, Vile Taint needs to have some kind of like Agony refresh every time. So there is that. Moving on from there, there's not a whole lot else in the tree I really want to hit on until like capstone territory. Like when it comes to Soul Harvester and Hellcaller, you are playing different talents in certain spots. You're playing like this with Hellcaller, not this with Soul Harvester, or not this with Hellcaller, so on and so forth. But I think the rest of the issues, for the most part, I think lie in this general area of the tree. Creeping Death, Creeping Death, Soul Rot, Malign Omen, Dark Harvest. These are all fine in their own respective settings. Crescendo, Rapture. This probably could be buffed a little bit, but they buff Rapture instead, so it's sort of whatever. Malefic Touch does indeed scale with Mastery. That's nice. Good to see there. I think the talents that are a bit undertuned are Xavius' Gambit, even after the UA buff, and Oblivion. We're not playing Oblivion anywhere at this current point in time. Nowhere in single target, no builds. 2 shards does make a pretty steep cost for Oblivion. If it's worth it, I'll pay the cost. But when you have abilities that are just increasing Rapture damage and building upon Rapture damage, and all these dot windows and synergies with Rapture and so on and so forth, just in general, it's just undertuned. It likely needs some buffs to its damage. You can increase the modifier per dot, say 20%, whatever it is per dot, up to 60. I don't know how you want to do it. I didn't run the math on it, but just make it do more damage. At this point in time, like it is like one of your capstone single target rewards, but it's not worth it. To a similar extent, Xavius' Gambit can probably make it a 30% increase to UA, if not more, and then maybe it'll be played. But UA was buffed by 50%, I believe, a few weeks ago, and Xavius' Gambit is still not being played. So these two potentially need some attention as far as buffs are concerned. You have Relinquish, which, I mean, I think is a cool ability, but probably not be played anywhere for a handful of reasons. You have Perpetual Instability. I don't know where it's going to be played anywhere. PvE, PvP, Rogue Quest, Torghast, I have no idea. If you make this Cascading Calamity, it's a simple solution. Maybe an 11.1 thing, but like, the cast time of UA being reduced is not that impactful. UA's cast time baseline for me is 1.2 seconds without this talent, and I cast it once every 16-ish seconds. It's not a big deal. It's not like it's reducing Rapture's cast time, by 20%, right? It's UA. The damage refresh, unless it's like buffed a significant amount, it's not going to be played anywhere. Making it Cascading Calamity would be a lot better. But the way to make this talent playable, I think in this patch, if you want it to be, the cast time thing is whatever, you've got to buff the damage. A crazy amount likely for this to be relevant when it comes to builds here. And yeah, this is being played for Soul Harvester. The proc rate is 1.4 per minute. Seems a little low, but honestly, hey, whatever, is what it is. Yeah, I think that's basically it for AF for the most part. If I missed anything, throw it down below. But I believe, yeah. I believe that's where it's at. The biggest thing here, please revert TC change because it feels pretty awkward in every setting. Moving on to Demonology here for feedback. When it comes to the 2 hero talents here, we've got Soul Harvester and Diabolist. I'm sorry, I'm trying. Please don't get angry at me, YouTube chat. So when it comes to Soul Harvester, similar stuff here. Shared Fate is actually spread not by Nightfall or playing Demonology. It is spread by Demonic Cores. To a similar extent, this summons your dude whenever you cast a Demonic Core. Base Demon Bolt, whatever, Demonic Cores. When you cast Tyrant, you get 3 shards, which are empowered by Shadow of Death. Soul Harvester generates a lot more Succulent Soul procs because you generate so many more shards. To a similar extent, you summon, your Demonic Soul much more often because you're casting a lot more Demonic Cores. You've got Power Siphon, you've got your Dog Expiring. The core economy has been nerfed severely. We're not casting too many, just you're still casting a lot more than you are when it comes to like AF versus generating shards from Agony or maybe like a UA, slash Drain Soul generation, so on and so forth. I think to a similar extent here, you can tab target Demon Bolts with Demonology, just like our bonus in S3 and S4 from Dragonflight. But at times you might not for Shared Fate. Something happens, it is what it is, or even just a single target. Adding a stacking damage clause like Devouring Plague to Shared Fate would be very, very impactful and would go a very long way when it comes to making Soul Harvester feel even better rotationally, but it already feels pretty good. So there's that, just wanted to point that out. When it comes to Diabolist here, honestly, there really isn't a whole lot for Diabolist I want to hit on. I want to hit on Gloom for Destruction, but it's fine for Demonology for the most part. I mean, like, obviously there could be some tuning to the pets, some buffs, some nerfs. I wouldn't even say nerfs at this point. They were obviously buffed way too much a few weeks ago, and they were nerfed back down to, our world semi-recently. They fixed the Infernal Bolt, like, weird kind of feel with shard gen and cast times and all that. I think for the most part, Diabolist is in a pretty good spot. Visually, very, very cool, obviously. There's not a, there's not a whole lot to it really that makes that needs to be hit for Diablos. I think there's a bug where your pets attack, like I'll do it right here actually. There's a bug where your pets attack the nearest mob to them. I noticed it last night. I noticed it for a while. It was even happening in S3 and S4. Your pets being your pets, not instant things, your pets being like Mother of Chaos, like Big Mommy, the Pit Lord. If I spawn one here, it will likely attack this dummy. The Overlord, I think, might charge in, but Big Mommy and Pit Lord will attack this thing. So let's try and do proc it really fast. We're going to proc in a second here. Spawn him now. Overlord, he'll run in. Big Mommy's coming in 10 seconds here, and she'll very likely just Chaos Nova or whatever she does this thing instead. It might not even happen every time. I don't know, but I've seen it happen before. It happened last night in the video. Spawn her in. There she... Oh, here. I should cast a shard spell. Yep. Okay, well, she did it last night. I'm not going to sit here and wait forever, but she did it last night. That and the Pit Lord happen from time to time, and it ends up being sort of annoying because there are like priority-based mobs you want to hit certain things. You know, and that is that. This is also a good example here. Let me try and drop combat really fast here for it to show another, I guess, bug in a sense. And this is one that I think likely needs to be looked at, not just from a like a gameplay POV, but like a well, from a gameplay POV, but from like a I don't know if the word is exploitative kind of POV, but so for example here, I have my Overlord coming up next in 5 seconds here, right? He's gonna basically, you know, proc about now. I'm going to let him be procced, whatever. I'm going to cancel. Well, I'll let him expire. The issue is that, so Diabolist always has a set rotation of pets. It's the Overlord into Mother of Chaos, Big Mommy into the Pit Lord. Whenever you like, you know, start doing things, right? That's how they always spawn in the same order. You're never going to spawn like Pit Lord into Pit Lord, right? Whenever you're in constant combat. The issue is that this has been a bug since early, well, alpha, honestly. A bug, or I guess an oversight, is that if you have ways to reset combat, and even if you die, like in a dungeon or a raid, dying in a dungeon and having it be the effect is okay, but in like raid-based settings, if you reset, pull a boss, proc ritual, reset it, whatever, or if you die on a boss and you have like your Orvine coming up now, right? He's ready to go. If he expires or whatever happens, even if he's like half queued up in his cycle and you die, if you come back, the next pet you summon is not going to be the Orfiend, like number one. It'll be either Mother of Chaos, or if Mother was expiring, it'll be Pit Lord. Unless they fix the bug right now, from last week, it should still be a thing. So what do we get here? We get Mother of Chaos, exactly. It should be Overlord, because I left combat there. And what this enables is essentially if you're raiding or doing whatever, if you're trying to like get a pet to proc initially, like one of the biggest pets, Overlord's very strong to be fair, but Pit Lord gives you Ruination. In certain settings, Ruination is very strong. Pit Lord himself is relatively strong, and he gives you 3 free imps from Ruination. So whatever pet ends up being the strongest here, you can sort of like, I don't want to use the word exploit, but you can sort of cheese what pet you want to spawn in first, which might lead to some degen stuff when it comes to raiding and all that. I don't want it to happen, so just, hey, whenever you reset a boss or die in a raid setting, just literally have the pets reset. You can leave it this way in dungeons, it's fine because you're in combat a lot and dying and leaving and entering combat, it's okay. But in raids, unless they change it in raids recently, I haven't been in a raid in a while, if you die or reset a boss, reset the ritual count back to number 1, which is Overlord, into Big Mommy, into Pit Lord, please. So yeah, that's basically that for a Diabolist. When it comes to talents here, there are a couple I want to hit on for the most part. Not a whole lot up here. This is like basic demon stuff we've had for a long time. I do feel like Shadow Invocation gives a bit of a buff. It's not like incredibly strong in AoE anymore. Obviously, it was pretty strong. We had like the constant cleaving going on with Hand and Gul'dan and all that. That's been you know, fixed and all that. But could use maybe a tiny little buff when it comes to damage values. I think one of the big things here is actually Grimoire Felguard, though. Grimoire Felguard is just not a very exciting or powerful cooldown. It makes Tyrant setup feel a bit clunkier. Obviously, you know, if it's good, we're going to play it. You're playing it now, but only by a very slim margin. And Grimoire just sort of feels like it feels like it's just not tuned properly. There are some builds that are playing no Grimoire. This is actually the build right here, I think. Let me change to it. Let me, if I can do this here. Yeah, so the build just pulls Grimoire and it just throws it into Imp Gang Boss. And it's like I think it was slightly better than playing Grimoire. It might have changed recently. I haven't seen it, but even if like this is this close to playing Grimoire with Tyrant and Ring of Tyranny and all this stuff here. It needs to be buffed likely. To a similar extent, you can make this give a demonic core whenever you summon your Grimoire Felguard instead of whenever it expires. Whenever it expires, all your pets are expiring at that point. You got a million cores coming in from 15 imps, 4 dogs, you know, your Grimoire expiring from this. If you, number one, we probably need to buff Grimoire's damage. Buff Grimoire. But number 2, if we make this give a demonic core whenever you summon your Grimoire, not whenever it ends, when you're already in, you know, core heaven and overstacked with cores, that would also go a very long way for Tyrant setup, because once again, dogs were nerfed to 50% for core generation. It's a 1 in 2 chance per dog to expire to give you a core. If you made this, you know, 100% chance when you summon your Grimoire, it gives you a core. That helps with rotational consistency, fluidity, all that, and that's what you need in a rotation. The RNG of dogs giving sometimes 2 cores, sometimes 0 is not great. Fiendish Ablation would at least help with Tyrant setup in larger Tyrants. Every other Tyrant, if you give a core whenever you summon Grimoire. So these two, maybe we can hit on that, see where it goes. Besides that, honestly, like, there's not a crazy amount here. Fire Dog, if you notice here, his Infernal Presence ability, he's scaling with haste. It's every 0.8 seconds. If I put some more haste on, it'll be shorter. Takes him off, it'll be longer, basically. He is scaling with haste. Purple Dog is not. It is just, well, it's 1 second for his auto attack, whatever, right? 1 or 2, whatever it is. So basically, you're playing Red Dog everywhere, in single target, in cleave, in AoE, which doesn't feel like it should be that way. Either we need to like remove the haste scaling on him, or more than likely just make this thing scale with haste too. Probably a better solution to not nerf Demonology, which doesn't need a nerf in the first place. And then both dogs would like to be played in their own respective settings. Single target for the most part, in like cleave, AoE, and all of that. If you're going to play Hatred, which I don't think you are anymore, these are just sort of like awkward points. This needs like gigantic buffs, like ginormous buffs. Core economy was nerfed a lot. This didn't get any buffs to help. This is sort of like a dead part of the tree, feels like a bit. I've had some issues with Doom and Doom Guards not spawning very often and doing subpar damage. I think it's just a bug on dummies, but you know, if it's a bug, whatever, I want to point it out. But if you're gonna buff anything, also like Hatred probably needs to be likely needs to be buffed by, I don't know, 500%, something like that. It is so incredibly behind with Demonic Horse being nerfed into the ground. And honestly, it was pretty mid even in Dragonflight. But I think for the most part, that's basically all the Demo feedback. Obviously, hey, make dogs 100%, not going to happen. But I think for the most part, Demo feels pretty good to play. Diabolus is very cool. And Soul Harvester, when you get 3 shards from Tyrant with like Baleful Invocation back in a sense, a baby version of it, feels pretty good too. Yeah. Demonology. And finally, we have Destruction, which has Hellcaller and Diabolist here. Diabolist Destro was recently buffed a crazy amount. Diabolist in general was. They buffed pets like a crazy amount in their abilities, but they also made Ritual 14 seconds for Destruction specifically and left it as 20 for Demonology. A few days later, all those changes were reverted. The pets were nerfed again. I don't know back to where they were initially or not. Some maintained partial buffs, but they changed Ritual back to 20 seconds, which gives you like, you know, 17 with Cruelty or, you know, less with Infernal Machine in Tyrant windows, or in Infernal windows, right? So the thing is these nerfs that came in knocked Destruction down to being the worst spec in single target in AoE. And it feels like it needs some attention, whether it's to Diabolist or Hellcaller itself, or more likely just the actual Destro tree on its own. I think for the most part, Hellcaller is fine for Destro. It feels pretty good. You've got a lot of like Black and Soul synergy here in general with shard spending. Diabolist feels pretty good too. I do want to hit on Gloom of Nathriza. This feels very, very awkward for Diabolist in single target for Destro. Enemies marked by your Havoc take 5% increased damage from your Havoc from your spells. I'm not casting Havoc in single target. Mayhem will not proc in single target anymore. It used to, it won't do it anymore. This just feels like a dead talent when it comes to Destro and single target. So I mean, you could just add something to this to modify Chaos Bolt's damage, something along those lines. I don't know, but this feels like just a literal 9-point tree if you're playing Destro in non-Havoc settings. I think the Havoc clause is cool. You can leave it on there, it's fine, but add something else to this because it just feels like it's, we have finished this node and didn't really get back to making it good in single target. That is that. When it comes to the tree itself for Destro, excuse me, my throat is messed up. There's obviously there was the Rain of Fire playstyle, which you were casting in single target to dump shards and then casting Chaos Bolts off of either Diabolic Art or Demonic Art procs or Ritual procs. That has been nerfed to the point where it's not worth casting Rain of Fire in single target anymore, thankfully. But at the same time, Destro is looking a bit subpar when it comes to single target. One of the synergies that was broken was actually Channel Demon Fire and Soulfire. Now, I think this was partially due to trying to break up like the shard generation that came with all the random fire stuff, right? Which, you know, CDF basically had like a 70% chance whenever you cast it to get a Soulfire reset. And while I get why they broke it up, if there's some way to bring that back, I think it would go a long way for Destro. Having CDF as a button you wanted to hit and felt good to hit, partially because you had this, but also because in general you're getting a Soulfire proc, which launched a huge glob of red fire, gave you a shard, really fast cast time. It felt good to finally hit Soulfire and CDF. It's like a miracle. Those both have been hated for a long time, but it felt really good. It still feels good to hit Soulfire now. It just procs, I think, like 35% less often or whatever, but I feel like you probably bring that CDF thing back. At least look at doing it. They made it so it's indirect damage essentially with CDF. Just, I think, make that work again. No, it's super cool. Really cool synergy. And there's that. They buffed Shadowburn a crazy amount. It's actually very mobile now. It's definitely worth casting on cooldown. So you're not even playing CDF anymore. You're just going over here through Shadowburn and, you know, pathing in a very similar manner. When it comes to other abilities here, Rolling Havoc can probably just be doubled to 2%. At 1%, it seems very subpar. You also don't have Pandemonium anymore. They gave you a longer Havoc. This feels very subpar and probably not going to be played in most settings, even in cleave settings. A 5% increase, like, it's not bad, but it's only like 6 seconds when you hit max stacks. I mean, it could be longer depending on cast, but it doesn't last very long in general, with Havoc being shorter. If it was like 10%, sure, that's better. But 5% at rank 1, you know, it just feels sort of awkward and not really where I want to be as far as Havoc is concerned. To a similar extent, Flashpoint could probably be, honestly, probably 4% haste, at least 3. I think 3 is a good starting point per stack here, and not 2. This was reverted or changed from 2 stacks, 2 points to 2 talents to 1. It used to be 4, 8, 12. Now it's 2, 4, 6. This also does proc through Seeds of their Demise as Hellcaller, which is fine regardless at 3%, maybe even 4. But I'm not playing Flashpoint as a talent probably anywhere. Certainly not as Hellcaller, but I haven't even been playing it as Diabolus really. Just feels undertuned. Needs a little bit of attention there possibly. Heading to the bottom of the tree here, I mean, Soulfire feels good to play with, obviously. CDF synergy. Wouldn't mind seeing that changed, but hey, it is what it is. Chaos Incarnate and Peel are both pretty close here. It's just sort of a wash either way. Obviously, it's not 100% anymore. Is what it is. This was changed to 20 shards, essentially 15 if you're playing this. I think it's actually fine. He still hits pretty hard. It feels like this feels like a very strong capstone and one that I want. And if you're comparing this capstone to like Doomguard for Demo or other capstones for AF, like this is a great capstone, right? I think like the last points of feedback just sort of lie in this part of the tree over here. I think the proc rate on Dimension Ripper, if you're not playing Dimensional Rift, could be buffed significantly. It does work from what I've seen with Fire and Brimstone, giving you more incinerates to proc this, but I'm not really playing Fire and Brimstone a whole lot. And even if I am, like, the Rifts, just you're playing it in AoE settings, but if they buff this like significantly, it could very easily be played in single target. You just take a point. I mean, it'd be hard to find a point, but if you could just possibly even pull Embers depending on charge and maybe throw it down here or just find some no, pull this and go there. One of the two. I don't know. I think this would be a cool talent, what I'm getting at. If it was buffed enough and everything, maybe it'd be worth playing. Procking a random Rift without even playing a Rift, you know, would be super sick. Really cool. It's thematically Destro, but it does not proc at all, it feels like. To a similar extent, Dimensional Rift just feels, they all feel pretty undertuned. If you're playing Rift, it gives you a chance to reset. It feels pretty low. It's also based off Incinerate, not Immolate or Wither. If they made this based off Immolate or Wither, you have Cataclysm to play, obviously, which you could apply Immolate or Wither. It would be your bonus from, I think, S2 or S3, whatever it was, in Dragonflight, which felt pretty good. And I think this also, like, this does cleave damage, but the cleave is pretty subpar. If it were up to me, I'd tack a 4th Rift on here, a Fire Rift, or make this a Fire Rift, and like this talent here, and just put this talent in here. It's fine. You can make it Rift, Fire Rift here, add like a larger percent buff to Rifts that makes them cleave, and just put it in Rift itself, and make this proc more. If you did that, this part of the tree would be really appealing in certain settings. Like, well, Soulfire is awesome. If this is cool, I think this is cooler than Soulfire, but unfortunately, Rifts sort of feel like they've been left out, just like, we didn't get to finishing it, we'll finish it in 10 or 11-1, which might be the case, but regardless, wanted to hit on it, and yeah, I believe that's basically it for Destro. Quick scan of the tree here. Oh, okay, obviously separating Kata and Inferno would be great, but we had the prime chance to do it with, Pyrogenics being too good, and we still kept it the same. So I think it's basically it for Destro. Yeah. So thanks for watching, guys. That wraps it up, and hopefully you, hopefully agree with the feedback. At least found some points of it relevant, and I don't know. Fingers crossed. Maybe some of these changes, tuning buffs, and all that kind of come over the next few weeks before Heroic, and then in general, going from there. If you guys want any week horrors or add-ons, like always, links to Twitch and Discord down below. You can offer free. At the same time, my website will also have them in a few days whenever it's updated for launch. Kalamazi.gg, and in general, also Twitch and Discord for free if you guys want them. Also, a huge shout out to my patrons for all supporting on Patreon, like always, guys. Thank you for all support. I greatly appreciate it. If you guys looking supporting on Patreon, should be linked up here as well as down below in the video description. And yeah, thank you all a million times for all support. As I mentioned at the start, I would venture to guess Blizzard is tuning through the next few weeks. Whenever the raid comes out, Heroic Week is back, which is good for tuning, at least for this first tier, not back after that, but either way. We'll be seeing a lot of changes, so if builds do indeed change from the guides that are coming out in a few days, I'll likely have a paste bin for the whole patch, probably the whole expansion at this point, who knows. I'll be updating constantly with builds and all that, so keep checking back to that. I'll have it linked in the guides when they come out, and if there are new builds, I will have them today for y'all. So with that being said, thanks for watching, guys. If you like the video, hit the like and sub button below. Helps out a ton. And I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.